We continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, Siman and Nun Ches, the halachas of Kriya Shema. Today we're going to begin with Sif Hey, and we're going to conclude the entirety of Siman Nun Ches. And begins the Mechaber in Sif Daled. Begins the Mechaber in Sif Daled. Im Kira'a Misha'ala Amura Shachar Aval Bishlaya Anis. As we mentioned in the previous year, that the optimal time to read Kriya Shema is after an 8, but in a trying situation, you're allowed to read it from Alois HaShachar. So says the Mechaber, let's say you read it earlier. You didn't have an Einis, and yet you said, Shema, once it's Alois HaShachar, Yoitze B'diavad, you're Yoitze post facto. Im Kara, continues the Rama, if you read it below brachos, if you read it without the Birchas Kriya Shema, which is probably the classical case if you're reading it too early, you should go back and read it again with the brachas at the appropriate time. So says the Mishnah Berurah over here in Sefkatin Yurches, Lachar Amura Shachar, Yishayim Damura Shachar, Ma'at Koin Nishar B'nei HaMizrach. Some say Allah is a dot before the entire eastern side is lit up, when the whole side is lit up. This is before the Zman that we call Mishayakir, the time that you could tell the difference between blue and white. And of course, we just go to My Zman and other incredible ulachs and look up the Zman. You are Yoitze B'diavad if you read it earlier. Sefkatim Yotes, says the Mishnah Berurah, the mitzvahs Iksas Anoshim come in ba'isas man, as Mishmur already taught us. The reason is because our people, they got up at that time, and therefore we could call that time. And this goes back to the Gemara and Brachas that many of us had the schos of learning together at the beginning of Daf Yomi. That the reason why you're allowed to read it at that time is because why? The whole Zman of Kriya Shema goes by the time is Zman Kumecha. As we learned in the pasuk, the Torah says b'shach b'cha, you have to say Shema when you lie down, and when you get up. So it's called Uviku Mecho. B'diavad, says the Mishnah Berurah, Hamidu al din Torah. So b'diavad, we go with the Mid'arais, the basic letter of the law, and this is actually a loaded line in the Mishnah Berurah. That generally, the b'diavad, we're going to be make alike the letter of the law, the din Torah. Continues the Mishnah Berurah, v'davka ba'akrai ba'almos, only could be a happenstance. Hainu pamachs b'chodesh, once a month. U'diyoytze b'diavad avlamoy ragoi lasas kein amru chacham shafilu b'diavad lo yotzav zarlachs l'krois. A startling fact, says the Mishnah Berurah, b'diavad over here means once in a while. But if you do it every day, you're not yoytze. So if one every single day says Kriya Shema after Alois HaShachar, before the Zman of Mishayakir, he's not Yoitze Miyu, Imshas Adchako, Filu Ragil Tuva Shari, then is allowed to Mayavi Al Mevad, Sashas Adchak, what could he have done? And we continue in the Mechaber and say, hey, if there's an Einis, an unvolved mishap, and he did not read Shema, Arvis HaShelam Rashachar, and night until it's Alois, Kimish Adayin Lo Yanetza, Chama Kari Kriya Shema, V'yoytze Bayi Dechavetz Kriya Shema Arvis. This is something also that we learned to the Gemara in Barachais, that until Al Netza Chama, which, if everyone's listening, that means there's going to be an overlap of times over here. From Alois, you really yoytze already the daytime Shema. But if you didn't say the nighttime Shema, you could be yoytze between Alois and Eitz as well. Then my honest boy says, let's say the derech makom could do the chayav list. And let's say you got up early to go on the road. Like your Kriya Shema pam shenis, says Mishnah Berurah, but you can't double dip. Don't say it a second time. Let's be the chavetz Kriya Shema shal yoyim. If you just said Shema after Alois HaShachar in order to be yoytze Shema for the previous night, don't think you could say it a second time to be yoytze the daytime Shema. Shema achar she'asa l'oisa shal layli yev shalachs l'asas yom. Once you determined that part of your day is night, you can't go back and make it day. Says Mishnah Berurah Sefkatin Chaf Achama, who makes us Anashim Mishein B'Yis Man. Now we have the opposite svara, just like the Mishnah Berurah just taught us that early in the morning could be Yoitze Shema. Why? Because since some people get up, it's called Uviku Mecha. Says Mishnah Berurah, but there are some people sleeping. So we could call it nighttime and be Yoitze your Kriya Shema of the night. Without this reason, You will not be yaitz b'diavad. Lo yikra chaf aleph. You should not read it a second time. V'yishcholkim b'zayin el yirava. Shein is the second time. Afilu achar sheyagia zman li she'akers chaver b'yichlik dalet amos. So says Mishnah Berurah. Let's say the first time of the night time you said it after Allah is before. Before Misha Yakir. You still cannot say it a second time after Misha Yakir. Why? Because once you made it night, you cannot make it day. You should wait and maybe you'll have the schos of reading it at the right time. And we continue in Sif Vav, says the Mechaber. Even though the Zman Kriyishma goes from Mishayakir Neitzachama optimally until the third hour of the day. Let's say you missed it. You missed this man. You can read it with the brachas until the third. Excuse me. Ravi, a quarter of the day, which is a third. The Shah Ravi is, 4 hours of the day, which is a third of the day. One more time. The fourth hour of the day, which is a third of the day. We lost out the reward of reading in the right time. But we lost the birchais kriyas Shema. Excuse me. Having issues over here. Let's continue. Let's put Siv Zayin together with Siv Vav. Says the Mechaber in Siv Zayin, if you miss Kriyas Shema by day, some sold that you have the din of Tashlumim similar to the halacha of Tefillah v'chenim loy kar Kriyas Shema ba'arves yishal Tashlum hayoyim v'iyish cholkim, and some argue. So says Mishnah Berurah over here in Siv Kotim Chav Daled, Kara, afilu b'vshia, even if you did it negligently, that you missed this man. V'niyar apashit the mashikasav loy kara lav dafka. Says Mishnah Berurah when the Mechaber said that he didn't say Shema. That's lav dafka. Let's say you said Shema early, you just missed the birchas kriyas Shema. You can still say it with the brachas again. You shouldn't say Kim Deloy Kara Klal Arata, since you did not say it at all until this moment. So therefore, what would one think? Because you did not, don't think that because it's only because you didn't say it at all until now, Garua Yoiser, it's worse. No, even though you said it without the brachas, you can repeat it. The Mishkas Yaakov calls into question, if you already said it, whether you got to say it again with the brachas. And the Mishnah Mechaber taught us until the Shah Ravi is the fourth hour of the day. The brachas einon shaykh on the Kriyas Shema, because the brachas have nothing to do, says the Mishnah Berurah, with the Kriyas Shema itself. The Afal Pishin Niskana Kodim Kriyas Shema, even though the brachas were enacted takana before Shema, we call Makom Lav Birchas Kriyas Shema. The brachas aren't on the Shema. She'enam Avar Sheikh Shem Zvenli Kriyas Shema. Varehem Kimoy Tefillah. So it's like a tefillah lefikach dina k'moy tefillah shachash uraka shlosh hayom. Therefore, you have until the third of the day, 4 hours in, because it's not. Even though you missed the kriyas Shema because the zman passed, you still can say it with the brachas. Avar shavris, but before the hour passed, afilu nanas afilu achim mikan v'yedel chefsed brachas. You can't say the brachas anymore. The bir chavi bracha levatala, and if you do say it at that point, it is a bracha levatala. Ayin bir alacha. Kairos if katul chav zayin alam bilva shekasav yachli kros. You're able to read it. Vakvanas who. It's better that you read it. So this is going back. This is going back. That if the fourth hour passed, then what? And you did not say Shema, you're still able to say Shema the entire day. So says the Lavosh, you're able to say Shema, and the Kavanah who it's still good. Even if you missed the Zman, you're still accepting upon yourself the yoke of heaven, as we saw in yesterday's Mishnah Berurah. The entire world was worthy to be created for being Mekabel Malchus Shemayim. Aval Eino Mechuyev. Once this time passes, you're not obligated. She'enu Mekayim is that mitzvah say Kriyas Shema. You lost the mitzvah say. You only have until the third hour. And says Mishmur, you should know. Did we call Makom Bar Shar Psukim Shem Maskir Mitzvah Shayim, the other Psukim of Tzitzis and Mitzvah Mitzrayim? That Mechi Min HaTorah Kol Yoy, very important. You still have an obligation the entire day to be Maskir Yitzias Mitzrayim and to remember the mitzvah of Tzitzis. So there's no Zman to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim, which because of Shagidari Sevinyo Deis Erev. It's a very important detail Mishnah Berurah just pointed out. Often one says, I missed it. It's over. It's true. It's over for the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. Number one, still, Lulvush taught us, you still should say it, because you still could be Makabel Malchus Shemayim. And number two, the Mishnah Berurah is teaching us with the Shagis Aryeh, you still are getting a Din D'Oraisa, just not the Din D'Oraisa of Kriya Shema, rather of being Mazkir Yitzias Mitzrayim. So some say the din of Kriya Shema has a din of Tashlumim. In a kavanah shetim say Kriya Shema, this doesn't mean that you're actually yotzei Kriya Shema if you say it again. It's only like you're reading the Torah. Rak shelechatchila tzarich la'ashlim k'maytfila lechatchila you should be mashlim, you should complete it like davening al kim mivayi lakdumi chayves shaita bereisha. So therefore you should first do that which you're mechuyev right now, but take of achar arvis yikra oit shema v'shel zeh ba'am shachiser. So if you miss Shema the whole day, first have a ma'ariv with Shema, then say it a second time. In b'shagi chesra, but if you did it by accident, as we'll see in Siman Kov Ches, which are the lachas of Tashlumim. They go with the cholkin that there's no din of Tashlum. And of course, if one unfortunately missed the whole day of Kriya Shema, perhaps the Eitzah would be to say it as an Edava, Kikayr B'Tayra. I'll pick it up from Siman Nun Tas the next year, B'siyata Dishmayo.